All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for part two of our We're All in This Together Homefront webinar. My name is Baylie Albus, and I'm a museum educator at the National World War II Museum. Yesterday, we shared the first half of our virtual field trip with you and included some added on resources for elementary aged kids. And we'll do the same thing today, where we show a short video, share some resources with you, answer some questions, and then we'll send everybody on their way to enjoy their weekend. If you guys have any questions at all, please look at the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. You should see a Q&A. Any questions you have, just type in those questions and we have museum educators standing by to answer them. But for now, I'm going to pass it off to our student reporters and we'll watch a brief video about some more home front things going on during World War II.
In the National World War II Museum's U.S. Freedom Pavilion, you can get a close-up look at the types of equipment used in the war, like tanks and planes. It took a lot of materials, like metal and rubber, to make war vehicles, aircrafts, ships, and ammunition too. And kids during the war helped to collect the materials that were needed to make ammunition and equipment. Here with me is Mr. Jim Bryant, who as a kid spent most of his time collecting materials that could be used in the war.
Well, there was a lot going on in the home front, and it was all in support of our effort to win the war, both in Europe and in the Pacific. One of the things that the entire country did was to gather scrap, metal, tin, and bring it and give it to the government, and they would then take that and build wings of some of these airplanes you see here, or some of the tanks, a lot of metal there. So to understand, it was an effort not only from the men that were in the uniform, both in Europe and in the Pacific, but every family back home.
So I've heard you say scrapping a few times. What exactly does that mean?
Scrapping means gathering all kinds of different things and turning them into things that could be used in the war effort.
So scrapping is a lot like what we call recycling.
A little bit, but it's using all the things that you find and redoing things to make something like this gas mask. One tire, 12 gas masks.
What about this big tank? How much metal would be used for that?
18 tons of steel to put that thing together.
18 tons, that is a lot of metal. So you scrapped other things besides metal and rubber, correct?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I can remember Mother, when she'd finished cooking the bacon in the morning, pouring the grease into a tin can. And you can take grease, that's what that was, cooking grease, and turning it into nitroglycerin.
So what did you exactly do with nitroglycerin?
We made bombs out of it. Big, strong, heavy bombs that did an awful lot of destruction.
So did everybody across the country scrap, or was it just your neighborhood?
No, everybody across the country scrapped. I have a scrapbook here all about children scrapping. It's about a boy named Billy Michal from Zimmerman, Louisiana. He went to school in a one-room schoolhouse with only 11 other classmates. Well, Billy was actually chosen to attend the launch of a Liberty ship here in New Orleans to represent his tiny school that won a statewide scrap contest. So Billy traveled to New Orleans for the first time and was treated to an inspection tour of the city in a Jeep and see the SS Leonidas Polk launch.
So Billy got into a Jeep just like this one?
Yes. Why don't you give it a shot? Hop in.
Thank you so much for taking me to the museum. It has been wonderful experiencing what a kid my age would go through during the war.
Thanks to you. You're very welcome. Come back to see us. It's a great, great museum.
Growing our own vegetables and herbs is a healthy thing to do, but it also tastes fresher and it's fun. But during the war, people grew their own gardens, which they called victory gardens, not only for fresh food, but also to make up for food shortages. Americans planted more than 20 million victory gardens across the country. These gardens produced 40% of the vegetables grown in the U.S. during the war years. In 1944 alone, the vegetables grown in victory gardens weighed more than 8 million tons. Growing food at home meant there was more food available to send to our troops overseas. It's estimated that an army of 1 million men consumed more than 1 million pounds of food every day. I'm here at the Museum Victory Garden with Ronnie Abood, who was a kid during World War II. Now, I know so many servicemen and women were sent food during the war, and so I guess there was less on the grocery shelves. So how did everyone get their fair share of food?
Well, there was rationing. There was a thing called a rationing book. In addition to that, we had a victory garden, and where you grew your own fruits and vegetables in the backyard on the side of the house. And that was pretty common in the neighborhood. But with the ration book, when you went to the store to buy an item that was limited or rationed, you had to have a coupon, and you'd pay the regular item for the price as a grocer, but then you had to give the grocer a stamp out of the coupon book itself. You had to be very careful, because if you used up all your coupons, if you weren't careful over the month how you used them, you'd run out of them, and then you couldn't get any more items until the next month.
So did every American get one, even kids?
Even kids, absolutely, even kids.
So was every single food rationed?
Not every food, but a lot of foods were. For example, sugar was very valuable, the sugar coupons. But even if you didn't have a coupon book, there were limitations on what you could get in the neighborhood.
Like you said, you also had your victory gardens, so you even had your own food at home. So I guess that made things a little easier.
Well, it did help, because my mom in particular nurtured over the garden, making sure that everything was cared for and taken. And then when it came time to pick the fruits and the vegetables, we did eat. Brought them inside, and in addition to that, we had a couple of chickens, and so we had a couple of eggs on occasion, and we also had a pet duck. I had a pet duck. His name was Herbie, and at one point my dad said the duck ran away, and I never could figure that out, but I think my dad maybe wasn't being 100% truthful.
Maybe not.
Why do you think there were some limitations on some things? For example, tomatoes, some of them were canned, some of them were not. Fresh tomatoes were okay, but canned goods were limited. Why do you think that was?
Well, I know that canned goods last longer, so you could actually send those overseas to all the people that were fighting.
And it was a heck of a lot of people. 16 million men put on the uniform of the United States. Hundreds of thousands of women also went into military service. So it was a lot of people that had to be fed and clothed and taken care of.
So did you start your garden before the war or during the war?
To my memory, we did not start it before the war. After the morning of December the 7th, after Pearl Harbor, I can remember my mother cutting up the grass in the backyard and digging a trench, and my dad also helping. And at the same time, she started planting seeds, and I would go out there and help her weed the garden.
Now, in my own garden, I focused more on herbs and spices, things to flavor my food. But in your garden, your goal was to feed a family.
No, positively. Well, it was an important part of the contribution to the war effort. You had to make sure that the more we could do at home, the better we could do to serve our men and women overseas.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
It was a taste of victory.
I bet it was. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ronnie, for sharing your memories of your victory garden.
Thank you.
The war changed movies, songs, and even cartoons and comic books. Here at BB's Stage Door Canteen at the National World War II Museum, you can hear some of the music that was popular during World War II. Places like the Stage Door Canteen were set up all over the country for soldiers to relax and enjoy entertainment. Famous singers and movie stars of the day volunteered to perform for the troops. Museum volunteer Mrs. Sylvia Murphy remembers the songs and music and dances of that time. What was some of the music like during World War II?
It was fun, and it was also beautiful. And some of those songs have become classics now, especially the love songs, the ballads. They were in the movies, they were on the radio, and we all enjoyed them so much. One of my favorite songs back then was the songs about the people leaving. They were leaving their families, they were leaving their loved ones, and so the songs reflected that.
Why was dancing so important?
Well, you know, it brought people together, and it was fun. The dance of the day really was jitterbug, and all the high school kids could do that. And of course, a lot of those high school kids became soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and the radio was our big entertainment, as were the movies. And not only did we see movies, we saw the news of the day. Everybody would look at those pictures of the boys fighting and getting in the airplanes and things and wonder if they would see a familiar face. And then, of course, they had the cartoons, Superman and Popeye. I remember Popeye was a big Nazi fighter.
Oh look, the Victory Bells are about to perform some of the songs from World War II.
He's in the army now, a blowing reveille. He's a boogie woogie bugle boy, company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. They really brought him down because he couldn't jam. The captain seemed to understand, because the next day the cap went out and dropped to the band. And now the company jumps when he plays reveille. He's a boogie woogie bugle boy, company B.
Now we're here with the Victory Bells, who just put on a wonderful performance. What do you feel you've learned from learning all the music and dances from the World War II period?
You know, it's an incredible era. They're known as the greatest generation, and I think the music reflects that as well.
And for the most part, to the audience, it means, to the audience that we're delivering it to, it means memories, like good memories.
And their music brought so much hope and joy to everyone on the home front, as well as the boys who were fighting overseas.
Well, for me, it was wonderful because the music and the movies kept us all upbeat, and it kept us focused on what we were doing, and it made us very proud to be Americans.
It feels also like it was a way of saying we're in this together, which it really helps in hard times.
You know, one of my other favorite things about the music of the 1940s was that it brought everyone together, and it wasn't just the music. Everyone gathered around their radios at home, or if they were our age, they went out to the canteens and to the dance halls because they were all dancing. So I'm going to show you a few moves. Do you want to dance with me? Okay. So I'm going to show you the truck, and if you just step on one foot and then let your heel drop and then bring up the other one, and then step on your left and then drop that heel, and you can keep going, and now you're trucking. Easy, easy. Wave your fingers. You can wave your fingers and even switch back and forth. And if you walk forward, so all it is you're just going to lean into your right hip and point that right finger down, and then lean into your left, and then keep switching, and you can move forward and back.
It's very cutesy.
And easy, easy stuff, and I'll show you how you can put it all to music. Hey, Joe, hit it. All right, you ready? Here we go, we're trucking. Y'all are doing great. Yeah. Well, now you're ready to go learn some dances in the 1940s.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Did anybody try trucking with our Victory Bells? So thanks for watching those short videos. We have just a few resources to share with you that go along with these videos. I'm going to share my screen with you very quickly. All right, so all of these resources will also be available for download online. They'll be available on our Twitter, on our Facebook page, and on our webpage. These are free for you to use, and we encourage you to use them at home or through your digital learning platforms that you might be working with now. The first one has to do with the rationing that our wonderful volunteer, Mr. Ronnie Abood, was talking about. So along with rationing, people also had to be very creative in how they used their regular recipes that they were used to cooking all the time. So things like cakes, they had to figure out a different way to use sugar or to use less sugar. So this is one example of one of those recipes, and we've also included another resource down here at the bottom that shows you the kinds of substitutions that they suggested. So we challenge you and encourage you to try to make one of these recipes at home. Or I also challenge you to maybe look at one of your favorite recipes and see if you can substitute one of those ingredients that was rationed during that time. The next one has to do with our wonderful Victory Bells, and we call this the Wartime Songs Remix. We have 3 different worksheets for you guys to try out where you're practicing your parts of speech, but you're replacing well-known lyrics from songs during the 1940s with your own by doing these wartime song remixes. And we've chosen 3 different songs that were very popular during the times. And then if you also look, you'll be able to click on the song title, and that will take you to a YouTube video that has to do with that song. So we've included, of course, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. We'll Meet Again, and this one has more significance than just being a popular song. This was actually a song that was used by Bob Hope during his USO shows. He sang this song at the end of every single show, and in this particular video, you'll hear Vera Lynn singing it at the end of a USO show, and all of the military personnel that are there are singing along with her. So I think it really shows the importance and the power of music during this time. It was a time to bring people together. It was a time for people for the feelings that they were feeling and the thoughts that they were thinking, a way to really put that into a different form and to work through those things. And then last but not least, we have a little bit more of a upbeat jazz song from our very local loved jazz musician, Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington. Don't get around much anymore. Let's see, and we have a little bit more time left, so we'll answer some questions. I have 2 questions that I got prior to starting this, so I'll answer those, and then I have 2 more questions that we received during the broadcast that I'll answer live as well. So our first one comes from Lauren. She said, what were some of the foods that were rationed during World War II? This is a great question, and this is a question we get all the time. So lots and lots of foods were rationed during World War II, and a lot of foods that we were used to getting from grocery stores were rationed. So things like bacon and ham, eggs, milk, cheese, even preserves, which I know that's not something that we use often now, but it was something that was used more frequently then. So all of these were rationed from month to month. You were given stamps for each month, and if you ran out of those stamps, that was it. You had to wait until the next month to get what you were looking for. All right, our next question comes from David. He said, how did Victory Gardens help the war efforts? This is another great question that we get frequently. So the whole reason behind people growing their own vegetables and trying to use that food that they were growing was to make it so that the vegetables that were being produced by farmers and by manufacturers, that those things could be canned and sent overseas. So think about when you go to the grocery store. Sometimes the first place you go is to the produce section, and you get lots of fresh vegetables and fruits. And if all of that was going towards your home, then we certainly couldn't send it overseas to the military. And like Mr. Ronnie said, there were 16 million servicemen in the military during the time. So Americans took the challenge and they grew their own vegetables. And I'm sure people down here in Louisiana were growing their own fruits and citrus and things like that. And they grew millions and tons of vegetables. So all of those millions and tons did not have to be taken from the grocery stores and could be sent overseas to those that really needed it. All right, and then I know we have some questions coming in our Q&A. This one comes from Callie, and she asks, were drinks rationed? That's another good question. And there were some drinks that were rationed. Fruit juices were certainly rationed. And then also tea and coffee. I know that's something that many of us rely on from day to day. So people had to be really creative and think about ways to ration their tea and coffee. And down here in New Orleans and Louisiana, we add chicory to our coffee. That has a lot to do with that rationing, a way to make it stretch and make it last a little bit longer. All right, and I have one more question. One more question from Miss Elsie. She said, how often did people go see entertainment and shows? This is another great question. And I would say often, I would say at least weekly, because a lot of the people got their news from the newsreels that played before movies. So if you wanted to know what was going on in the world, it wasn't as simple as turning on your TV. People had radios they had to rely on. So they would create these newsreels so you could see pictures and videos and things like that in real time. So you got that news by going to the movie theater and seeing a show. And then, of course, like Mandy said from our Victory Bells, that teenagers and kids would go to the canteen and the dance halls, and that's how they socialized and got together. So I would say that people were very frequently going to shows and enjoying entertainment. All right, I don't think we have any other questions. I know Miss Chrissy is answering some questions for you guys in our chats. So please, if you have any other questions, we welcome them. We will continue to answer them. And please stay tuned throughout this time. In the coming weeks, we have all kinds of great digital content that we are going to be sending your way. Another thing that I encourage you guys to check out is our resource a day through our Twitter page. We are including all kinds of great resources on our Twitter that you can use at home and in your classrooms. And we have lots of other really fun things coming down the way for you guys that you can do at home with your families, with your kids, or send out to your students digitally. Stay safe, stay sane, and we'll see you later. Thanks for joining us.